the Priestess. First, before we talk about the Priestess, let's talk about the cards themselves, the tarot cards, because these cards, just as the tarot by themselves, they are our teachers, they are our friends, they are counselors, they are ascended masters, and they are ourselves, our higher selves, talking to us. And when we work with the deck, that's what we're working with, all of those different things. The deck becomes this counselor for us and a step-by-step spiritual guide. And I already said friend, the deck is a best friend when you need advice, when you need help. It's like turn to the tarot deck. It's amazing. And the most amazing thing of all about the tarot is that the cards are alive. There is such a mystery there with this. It's a living system. And these cards, by the way I think about these cards is I think of these cards as being flashcards of the secret or hidden knowledge of the tree of life. So any card that you pull out is a flashcard of ancient knowledge. And that ancient knowledge still stands. It's ancient and it's also futuristic. It's timeless. It's timeless wisdom. And of all of these cards, the overarching card and the card that holds all of this is the High Priestess. The High Priestess is the overarching card of the Tarot of the Spirit. So I'm going to say that, of Tarot of the Spirit. In the beginning, we wanted to call the Tarot of the Spirit the Maja Tarot, and that's because the High Priestess is the Maja, and she was the one from whom, we'll say, I received the download for the Tarot of the Spirit, was the High Priestess. She's the one who's standing there with the Akashic Records. Okay, we'll return to that. So Maja is the feminine form of Magus. Magus is the magician, that's number one, right? And then the Priestess, the Maja, is the number two. So Maja means to do or to make. It's the root, which I also talk about in the Magus lecture. The root is M-A-G, and that means to do or to make. And it is the root of the feminine form, Maja, to do or to make, to create. It's also the root of Magus, image, imagination, magic, and other words I can't think of right now, but you get the idea. Imago. Oh, that's one of the best ones. Imago. Imago is the fourth stage of evolutionary development, going from the egg to the larva, to the pupa, to the imago. And the imago is the winged creature emerging. So the Magus and the Priestess both represent that winged creature emerging. The High Priestess is the Maja. She is the magic one who does, who makes, who becomes, and she empowers us to move into and inhabit our own story. We are her, she is us, and she teaches us how to be her. She asks us, what do you want your life to stand for? Who do you want to be? What is calling you? And is there a destiny for you? And do you have a destiny? Do you have a personal destiny? Well, we discover that every baby, human baby, is born with a cosmological predisposition, with a personality, with certain likes, certain dislikes, and so on. What we learn over time is that each of us, as a human being, I'm not excluding animals from this, by the way. They're born with their own likes, and just every single one of them, and even plants. Okay, but I don't want to go there right now. In fact, I don't even think that humans, by the way, I have to throw this in, humans are not the highest on the totem pole. Humans are the newest kids on the block on this planet. And we've got a lot to learn, parenthetically. Okay, but I just want to talk about humans, human consciousness right now. Okay, so we are born with cosmological predispositions. We are a universe within a universe. And we are a universe on the path of its own self-discovery. And we contain all the properties and powers of the universe that gave rise to us. And I believe that the universe that gave rise to us is also, containing those universal powers, is also on the path of its own self-discovery. And being manifest, we are universe contributing to the knowledge of its own self, the knowledge of its own being, if that makes any sense. Okay, so just to back up a little bit, I want to reiterate just a few words about the Fool, the Magus, and then the Priestess, because the Priestess is the third in the major arcana there. She's key 2, she's number 2, but she's the third value, they call it. Okay, the first value is the Fool, 0, 0. And the 0 is the circle of all potential, all possibility. Anything is possible. Then what happens is with the Magus, all of that, maybe not all of that potential, but a lot of the potential gets concentrated into a one, like one being, one human, one cat, one raven, one poppy. Okay, so everything gets concentrated into many ones. Okay, and those ones are all going to be containing all the potential, or much of the potential of the universe. The many in the one in the many is the equation here. But right now, the Fool, all the possibilities of the Fool get concentrated into the Magus. Then we move into the Priestess consciousness. That's next. Okay, so Magus is the centrated one being. It's called the centrated being. The Magus is original with those universal predispositions. Then in the Priestess is where we really activate those energies to bring about the new that is going to arise out of that. The Priestess is about feeling and intuiting our calling as an original being, right? So each of us is an original being, and in the Priestess energy, we intuit our calling. In the Priestess energy, we begin to claim the story only we can claim. We begin to live the life that only we can live. And the Priestess is the energy that unites us with that which is going to carry us forward. And right now I'm going to call it the beloved. The Priestess unites us, begins to unite us with the beloved. But the beloved could be anything. It could be a thing or a person or a place, or whatever. And the Priestess is the energy that brings us, is going to move those things and get them in working order. Like it could be a person or it could be a violin. I always give that example. I think that's a past life example. It's you as the longing artist spotting that violin, and then everything begins to come into play. And it'll come into full play in the Empress. But in the Priestess, it's like, okay, here comes the uniting energies to claim the life that only you can live. So the Priestess unites and equilibrates our relationships, and our deep calling arises within ourselves. This morning I was thinking about the Priestess as a fortune teller, because she's standing there. You can see her on the card. She's unraveling the scroll, which is the Akashic Records, and she's saying, okay, what's your fortune going to be? What fortune will you live? And I say, of course, the best way to predict your future is to create it. And the best way to create your future is by knowing thyself. That's the Priestess energy. And this is also the energy of the uniting intelligence. The priestess is called the uniting intelligence. So, and how do we recognize then? How do we recognize our path? And we recognize our path by paying attention to that which attracts us, that which allures us. And it may be very subtle, or it may be overwhelming. Either way, the key to knowing our path is listening to our intuition. So it actually becomes physical. You feel it in your body. You know it when you feel it. The priestess contains the power of attraction. So whereas the fool is all possibility, and then the magus is original being contained in a one, and then the priestess is two, which is the power of attraction. And now I want to turn to the book Visionary Cosmology and begin a little bit about what this power of attraction is. One of the things that has interested me more and more and more through the years is the powers of the universe from a scientific point of view. And the priestess embodies the power of attraction from a scientific point of view. So I want to read you this poem from Visionary Cosmology, but it's from the poet Mila Parinkantan from South India in the early first millennium. So here comes the poem. Love, love, they say, yet love is no new grief, nor sudden disease, nor something that rages and cools, like madness in an elephant coming up when he eats certain leaves. Love waits for you to find someone to look at. I love that, because what happens is our lives can turn on a dime. Fall in love. The busiest person in the world is going to change every single thing in their lives to rise into that space. That is the way it works, right? Okay, so enter on the High Priestess, enter point number 2. So the magus is point number 1. Okay, now add to the picture point number 2. And so as soon as you add point number 2, okay, I'm going to ask you guys, what do you have when you put up another point? When you have point number 1 and point number 2, what is created?
A line.
A line, and what could that line represent?
Opposition.
Could represent opposition. Connection.
Branch.
A branch.
Path.
Anything else come up? It could be directionality, movement, opposition plus complementary and supplementary forces and forms. All the potential begins to move once you have a point number 2, right? So the priestess is going to represent this point number 2. Also, going back to point number 1, if you only have one point sitting in space, anywhere in space, the point can become the center of a sphere. The point becomes the center of a sphere. And so by putting another point, the next point's also going to be a center of a sphere. So now you start to get these overlapping spheres and overlapping energies happening when you have 2 points. So the idea here is you are the point, you are the one, the point, the special point, the center of a whole sphere of life, corresponding to the power of 1, which is the magus. Then when we place the other point anywhere in space, what is created is this potential attraction and potentially repulsion as well. You know, either one. You could be repelled, not just attracted, but repelled away from that other point. In physics, well, we'll put it this way. The power of attraction moves and coheres and also separates and destroys everything in the universe. By the power of attraction, everything changes. Everything is changed. So in physics, there are four aspects of the power of attraction have been identified in the field of physics. The first one is, these are not in any order, okay, but gravity is the first one. Gravity has to do with things being pulled together and held in place by mass or weight. And you can call this also, if you use your imagination, but it's really true, things are always falling together because they're moving toward. And so our whole solar system, for example, is held in place by a pattern of falling that is based on mass. A smaller mass moving toward a larger mass, right? But even larger masses are impacted by other masses. So everything is held in that rotation, that movement by the power of gravity, right? Then the second one is called the strong nuclear force. And this strong nuclear force holds the nuclei of atoms together, nucleuses, the nuclei of atoms together. This is a positive plus positive bond because what happens is the protons at the center of the atoms are forced together at such a short range that they bond and they have this short range power, because usually in our universe, positive plus positive don't come together. They only come together if they're close enough, and then they develop a really strong bond. Okay, and so it's a positive plus positive bond, the strong nuclear force. But if those protons get even slightly separated, they will blast apart. That's how they make bombs, right? Pry those protons apart. That's the strong nuclear force. The weak nuclear force is fusion. And this fusion happens when atoms are drawn so close together that the electrons of those atoms jump orbits, and then they create a whole new type of atom by fusing together. And that power, the weak nuclear force, creates energy. And that's how stars are powered, by this fusion. And then that in that process of the fusion, energy is released. And what we see is photons pouring out of stars, is created in this process. It's the energy radiating out of stars. Then the fourth aspect, and you can read more about these different aspects of attraction in visionary cosmology or anywhere else you can get them. But the fourth one is called electromagnetism. Every atom has a charge. And just as an aside, there are more atoms in your body, your own body, than there are grains of sand on all the beaches on Earth. That's how many atoms are in your body and make you up. And every one of those atoms has a charge to it. And the charge depends on the number of protons, neutrons, and electrons in each atom. And this determines what kind of atom it is and what kind of charge it has, and so on. So the power of attraction holds all these aspects of existence in relationship. What happens is, as the atoms build into molecules and then they build into larger forms, those larger forms hold charges. So we are walking around, we become an electromagnetic field, even us as humans. So we're a walking electromagnetic field, walking through an electromagnetic field. This is the science part of it. And then we'll come alive to something. Well, why are we coming alive to that thing, to whatever it is that suddenly brings us into an awareness of being charged up. It's in our language too. Right? So there it is. The power of attraction. Charged masses of particles continually attracting and repelling one another, cohering, separating, exploding. This is the essence of creativity. This is ever new forms being created in the universe. Now, these are the things that I would not have been talking about 30 years ago in the cassette series on the Priestess. Okay, but this is who we are. We are made of universe. We are charged universe, moving through universe. And the Priestess encapsulates all of this energy. The Priestess metaphorically, and ourselves as the Priestess. Each of us contains the properties and powers of the great field of the universe, which exists within us and all around us. The power of attraction binds us in our bodies and binds us to the earth. And it places us in relationship with our sun, with our galaxy, with the web of connectivity, which is continually stabilizing, destabilizing, and restabilizing inside this power of attraction. So I wanted to read you a few things out of visionary cosmology that explain this maybe a little bit better. On Earth, the power of attraction binds the water molecules in the ocean, creates the flow of tides and currents, tsunamis, hurricanes, tornadoes, the trade winds, and the jet stream. Attraction creates rainbows, volcanoes, glaciers, deserts, the Himalayas, and the rainforest. Attraction brings us honeybees, hummingbirds, and bats that move from flower to flower, creating vegetation. If not for the power of attraction, we would not have one single bobcat, meerkat, or lizard. This is all due to the power of attraction. It can be said that the power of attraction permeates the living universe, and that we are the living universe, and therefore we are permeated by the power of attraction from the molecules of our heart to the meanderings of our mind. As we engage with and in this universal power, we are transformed. Our transformation gives rise to ever new dimensions of universe. Our participation with the power of attraction results in a shower of new possibilities. So this is all about rethinking who we think we are. This is the power inherent in the High Priestess. This is the power the High Priestess is offering to us. The cosmological power of attraction pervades all things in the universe. We remain on the earth because of the gravitational attraction between earth and our bodies. We are living inside the electromagnetic field, and even beyond that, each of us is an electromagnetic field. We move through the cosmos as a unit of centrated mass, which is capable of experiencing extreme attraction anytime, anywhere, in any given split second. Okay, enter point number two. And there we go. Love, my friends, love is the force most powerful. No force or form of passion can overpower love, not even pleasure. Love is the master of force and pleasure, and when it comes to courage, even the god of war is no match for the god of love. So said the Greeks. Most importantly, the priestess, by the way, we say, where were the women? The priestess, Diotima, in Greece, who was the teacher of, guess who? You will never guess. I'll tell you. Socrates. Yeah, she was his mentor. She taught him all of this stuff. And of course, Socrates taught Plato. So Socrates says, when we enter into the mysteries of Eros, we begin an incredible journey. Pierced by the beauty of an enticing form, we wake up, and then in right spirit, we move deeper in heart and mind to become eventually a lover, not only of that particular form, but of all beautiful forms. That's what the Greeks said. If we can just awaken ourselves to the love of anything, then we can awaken to the love of everything. In right spirit, we move deeper in heart and mind to become eventually a lover, not only of that particular form, but of all beautiful forms. As we come to realize we are standing in contemplation of a sea of beauty, violent love, which is wild and passionate, gives way to a love, this is the Greeks talking, violent love gives way to a love that is fair, noble, wise, and strong. And the ultimate result is a single science, the science of beauty everywhere. Arriving at the notion of absolute beauty, Socrates said, at last we know what the essence of beauty is. Beauty is at the center and the core of the tree of life as well. So I'm going to bring that up. The High Priestess connects the number 1 with the number 6, which I'll talk about in a minute. And the essence of the number 6 is the beauty way. Beauty before me, behind me, above me, below me, all around me, and inside me. The Greeks believed that the process of being, quote, startled into love awakens our authentic reality. The High Priestess of Tarot is calling us to awaken into our authentic reality, our authentic selves, which is likely or could be removed from the society in which we, from the structures of the society in which we find ourselves, which I talk about in the Magus. When we wake up, we're waking up to a really deep reality within ourselves. When we follow our heart, it releases us from bondage, and we are freed at last into the pursuit of our own true nature, which is the nature of true beauty itself. And that's what the Fool is seeking, by the way, moving through all of the different aspects. The Fool is seeking her own true nature. And when we finally stumble into that, that's when the awakening begins. This whole idea of the philosophy of love as God and God as love, that's the core of this beauty. Love is God and God is love. It's fundamental to the Western religious tradition. Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, with this idea of love at the core, which is beauty, which is God. And it's also the quintessence of the classical Hindu tradition of bhakti. And bhakti is falling in love. And at first you're falling in love with the grandeur and the beauty of the God or the universe, and eventually in the end we find out, oh my, we contain the God, we contain the universe, that thou art. And then we realize it's everywhere, it's in everything, it's all there is. And that is that place of realization, right? That is the place of the cosmic consciousness. And this is the promise that the priestess holds for us. Love, they say, is everywhere, in everything. But one has to awaken before one can know this. The Upanishads taught that fire, though present in the fire sticks, is not perceived until one stick is rubbed against another. Something has to release it, the power. The fire is brought to life through the power of attraction. The Hindus say the awakening may begin and end with divine madness. As one devotee of bhakti said, My friends, the whole world is a lunatic asylum. Some are mad after worldly love, some after name, some after fame, some after money, some after salvation and going to heaven. I am also mad. I am mad after God. So this madness, this ultimacy, this madness in its ultimacy becomes what is called the supreme sanity of absolute realization. About 1900, the Indian philosopher Vivekananda asked, "To whom do the stones and brooks preach sermons?" "To the human soul," he answered, "the lotus of whose inner holy shrine is already quick with life. When our heart is open," Vivekananda taught, "we can receive the teachings from the stones and the brooks. But to the heart that remains closed, stones and brooks appear as nothing more than mere stones and brooks." That is the essence of what we are coming alive to. That is the essence of the power of attraction. This point number 2, interject point number 2, which could be the stone, which could be the brook, is going to bring us alive. Now we have a trajectory. Now we have something to look at. Ignited by emotion, by excitement, and by resonance, we begin to move within this trajectory. There is power here. And again, there is no power stronger than love. The High Priestess is calling us to move inside of our authentic love story. This is the love story only you can have. Nobody else can have your love story. This is about awakening, entering, and grasping the tale of our own awakening and becoming. This is a great universal mystery in that, as the masters of old have said, that to which you are drawn has been calling you from the start. Everything is waiting for you. The stones, the brooks, the trees, the violin, the sewing machine, which we will discuss when we do the Empress. Okay. So when you look at the symbology of the card, you look at the card, just look at the card, the High Priestess card. What do you see? What leaps out? Anyone? Name something.
The floor, the checkered floor.
Checkered floor. Okay. Checkered floor. What do you think the checkered floor represents? Any ideas?
Good and evil.
Good and evil. Okay.
Yin and yang.
Yin and yang. Okay, so the checkered floor indeed represents all pairs of opposites. And it's, by the way, that's the same floor they have in the Masonic temples. But it does represent all forms of opposites, but they're intertwined because it's checkered, right? So it's all together. So it's all pairs of opposites, complementary and supplementary forces working together. And then you see a stream running through the floor. Water, like a river. That's a stream of human consciousness, or the stream of universal consciousness. So it's all running through all these. By having the checkered floor, that creates the power of attraction. Black and white, that creates attraction. So it keeps everything moving. And the stream of consciousness moves based on that. And by the way, the priestess has her feet, bare feet, resting on that floor and on the stream of consciousness. So she's completely attuned. What else do you see?
Sixth chakra, her eye.
The third eye. Okay, you see she's got like an eye on the top of her head. She's got the eye on the top of her head. Okay, so the eye on the top of her head represents her third eye, or her intuition, or her connection to the universe. And then if we overlay the chart, we can see where that third eye falls. And so overlaying the tree of life overlay onto the top of the card, we see that, oh my, that the third eye, and indeed her face is centered right in the middle of sphere number 11, the secret sphere number 11, which is called Dot. It's the doorway to knowledge. So that means she is open to all the knowledge of the universe, all that has been, all that is, and all that ever shall be. What else do you see? Anything else stand out?
Well, her veil.
Oh, her veil. Oh, yes. Okay. Yes. So she is veiled because she is going inward. The veil is a sign of going inward. And so she doesn't need to be able to see outwardly because she is seeing inwardly. Yeah. What else?
Pillars?
And the pillars, okay, we have a white pillar and a black pillar, same as the checkerboard floor. These are the pillars of the tree of life, and she stands equidistant in between those pillars, and she herself, in fact, comprises the middle pillar of the tree of life. She's on the middle pillar of the tree of life. Yeah, what else?
The moon.
Oh, the moon. Okay, so the moon is the astrology connected with the high priestess. So the moon has to do with psychic awareness and intuition and changing conditions, but also raises the question, what changes and what doesn't change? Because really, the moon itself doesn't change. It's a ball of rock, that's a satellite going around the earth or whatever, but the lighting on the moon changes depending on the positions of the sun and the earth. So it looks like it's changing. Okay, so what changes and what stays the same is a question that is raised. What appears to be changing, what's transient, and what is abiding. So those questions arise in the power of the priestess. So the moon shows perspective and how light and shadow fall. It's also connected with gravity, which is the power of attraction, because the moon for our planet regulates the tides, for example, right? So everything is connected and does go back in the physical connection and in the ground. What else?
So would you say she's emotional if it regulates the time?
So the question is, would you say she's emotional? And I would say that the power of attraction in human beings, and she relates to the power of attraction, is fundamentally emotional. Because our emotions, we're moved by something. Something moves us enough to create enough desire and discipline to stay on a particular path long enough for something to happen. And that's emotional. The desire is more important than the discipline. Mm-hmm. We can have the discipline, but it's not going to hold us. It's not going to hold us to the path. What is going to hold us on our path in this incarnation is what we feel deeply about, strong, and that's in the cells of our body. It's in our physical body. You can feel it. You feel the excitement or whatever when you're going someplace or when you're doing something that you're really related to or with. Yeah. Okay. What else? Anything else you see? The scroll. Okay. So the scroll. For me, the scroll is probably the most important clue on this card. So here's the scroll. It's the Akashic Records. If you overlay the tree of life on top of this card, and so when I say that, because I think that every card in Tarot of the Spirit was painted on a diagram of the tree of life. So you can overlay the tree of life diagram onto the card and you can see more about what it means. So when we overlay the diagram of the tree of life onto the card of the priestess, we see that the scroll looks like a waterfall flowing down. It's flowing down the middle pillar, but where it really picks up energy and curves is in the sphere number 6. And sphere number 6 is the place we want to live from, and that's the sphere she is pointing to. So sphere number 6 is the sphere of enlightenment. It's truth, beauty, enlightenment, and everything that we want to achieve in our lives, this enlightened consciousness. I see her as pointing to your name right there in the book of life. This is the Akashic Records and the book of life, and she's pointing to it, and she's pointing to you, and she's pointing at your name, and she's saying, okay, okay, Jaya. Okay, there's your name right there in the book of life. Okay, if you want to, right now, you can step in and claim your chapter. Are you going to do it? Are you going to do it? Are you going to step in? Are you going to claim it? Are you going to write your chapter to be contributed to the book of life, which would be the unfolding of the universe? That's the book of life. It's the unfolding of universal energies. And whatever we do as living universe contributes to the flow of universal energies. And we have far more power here than we realize. So Tarot is about realizing that power, claiming it, and stepping into it. That's why some people do it in private. They step into their powers in private. And then lob it out into human culture. Okay, what else do you see? Is there anything else? Anything else you note?
The triangle at the top.
Oh, triangle at the top. Okay, the triangle at the top is the supernal triangle or the cosmological triangle of the tree of life, which is composed of the 1, 2, and 3. The 1 is that centrated energy I was talking about that grows out of all potential. The 2 is the power of attraction. And the 3 is the manifestation or the birthing of whatever comes out of that power of attraction. So it also, that cosmological triangle also has something to do with what we believe in, because it's also got, it's opposing or complementary, supplementary forces at the top of the tree of life, where we see a black and a white, right, as 2 points on the triangle. So we see a black and a white, and then we see, and the third point is an opening into the universe. So, but the black and the white get things moving again, because those will be complementary and supplementary forces. And sometimes it's looked at as the sacred masculine and the divine feminine. But we need to understand that everything contains, the masculine is considered emitting, the feminine is considered receiving. So we all contain all those energies. And in fact, the priestess herself, so I was going to say, so it depends on what your beliefs are, how much power you take and how much you step into these energies depends on what you believe about how the universe is formed. And that upper triangle is represents, and this is another story, and I can't go into it too much right now, it represents our belief systems. So if we want to change our lives, we can change our personality, but to change our personality, we're going to need to change our ethical system, but we're not going to be changing our ethical system unless we change our basic belief structure in terms of what the universe is composed of and how it's put together. Our cosmology, that's our deep story. So that upper triangle is our deep story. There are 3 triangles on the tree of life. Second story down is our ethical triangle, which flows out of our cosmic belief system. And then the third triangle down is our personality and how it gets composed based on those upper 2. So we're going to have to really go deep into the tree of life if we want things to change. If we want our ethical systems to change in human culture, we're going to have to change our story, right? Can you follow that, right? And that's what the priestess is saying. We can change our story. Here's the Akashic Records. Let's work on it, kids. Let's get it together. Okay.
What's the cross?
Okay, there is a cross of equal arms. Okay, so what we're going to do, she's got a cross of equal arms in the throat, it's her heart. It's more like her heart area, spiritual heart area. And that cross of equal arms represents the fire, the water, the air, and the earth. Let's get it moving. The elements. Yeah, so let's get those elements moving. It's a cross of equal arms. She's blue, by the way, and blue represents the cosmic sea, which holds the memory of the whole universe and the way the whole universe is unfolded. So she wears the same blue as Mary, representing the cosmic sea, by the way. Okay, and I don't want to go into that anymore right now, but that's the fundamental energy of the divine feminine is that cosmological blue. At the same time, I want to point out that the energy of the high priestess being situated directly between the two pillars is androgynous. So she's an androgynous energy, okay, because she's equally balanced. She contains everything and she's equally balanced. Okay, and then finally, I think I'll mention that there's a Hebrew letter here on the card, and the Hebrew letter is called Gamil, and it means camel. So camel is also a clue here because the camel is the one that the camel can be in the desert for a very long time going without refueling, without water. So the camel carries the water inside, and water is also symbolic of emotion, but more particularly it's symbolic of love. So the camel can go for a long period of time feeling that dearth or whatever and still survive. The camel is also the one that runs high on instinct, because living in the desert sands like that, the camel learns or knows instinctively how to shelter itself in the desert storms. Okay, so as soon as the sand starts coming, the camel's eyes seal shut, the camel's nose, I'm sealing my nose shut, the camel seals its nose shut, goes down, and then when all the sands blow over, the camel can just be buried there, and then after the storm, can get up and walk away. I mean, camels live like that in the desert. Yes?
I don't know if is she the second dark night of the soul, and the camel would reflect or mirror the ability to
Exactly. She's the second dark night of the soul. So I'll just talk about that for a minute. The path of the high priestess is called the second dark night of the soul. So I'll tell you what that is about. That's the middle pillar of the tree of life. She's on the upper segment of the middle pillar of the tree of life. And below her, so I mentioned she connects the 1 through the 6. So at the very top of the tree you have the 1. Then you have the priestess connecting downward to the 6. But then between the 6 and the 9, right below her, is the path of temperance. And temperance is called the first dark night of the soul, and it's also called the desert way. And some other time we'll talk about temperance, but in the place of temperance, it's like, been to the desert on a horse with no name. It felt good to get out of the rain. In the desert, you can't remember your name, 'cause there ain't no one for to give you no pain. La, la, la. Anyway, so that's the path. That's going into the desert. And that's like trying to learn something, like Jesus goes into the desert for 40 days and 40 nights. And that's the vision quest. That's our vision quest place. Go into the desert. That's the first dark night of the soul. We don't go into the desert seeking unless something's up, So we're going to seek that vision quest. Okay, so we think by the time we get to the 6 out of that vision quest, that place of truth, love, and beauty, that the struggle's over. We got it made in the shade because now we've reached enlightenment. But it turns out there's another big path that we have to go through, and that is the high priestess, where we have to really deeply internalize the things that we're learning, and we have to go deeper. So I will also say that not only is the high priestess the second dark night of the soul, but again, if you look at the diagram of the tree of life, you will see that the high priestess is situated right over the abyss. The path of the high priestess is centered over what is called the abyss. which moves through that secret sphere of knowledge that I mentioned earlier, sphere 11, called dot. Okay, so it is said that the priestess lives on a bridge that goes over the abyss. Okay, so what do you think the abyss is? Just make something up.
Unknown.
Illusion.
Unknown, illusion.
It's where the Akashic Records are, right?
Ah, maybe where the Akashic Records are. Okay, here's how I imagine the abyss. I imagine the abyss as a big, like a narrow canyon, like a narrow, like a river, like a river has run through it at the bottom, right? But it's narrow, but it's deep. It's so deep, and if you fall off that edge, you know, these are like sheer cliff edge, and if you fall off that edge and fall into the abyss, you're in, you know, deep. You're in deep. Okay, so, and it's dark. It's really dark, and what you have to do is you got to figure out how to get out of there. Okay, and so you're moving along the walls, and you're feeling for handholds, and you're feeling for footholds. You know, maybe somebody's gone before, but maybe not. Who knows, right? So maybe you come to some handholds and footholds, and you begin to find your way out. Okay, so the priestess. So let's say she's already been through the path of the temperance, first dark night of the soul. Now she's in the second dark night of the soul because she, fell off the bridge into the abyss. And it's horrible. I mean, it's a nightmare. She's in the abyss. You know, she's in darkness. You know, she doesn't know how to get out. So she has to figure out how to get out of there. But what she's learning while she's in there, like any good horror movie, is she's learning she has resources that she never knew she had. And so she's going to come out fortified, you know, in some way, knowing much more than she ever imagined she could have learned. Later, I'm saying this because we usually fall into the abyss before we actively seek it, you know, so that's what happens to us in life. We fall in. Oops, you know, slipped. Oops, you know, and there we are off the rainbow bridge. Her bridge is the rainbow bridge, right? We fall off the rainbow bridge. We slip into the abyss, and it's like, oops. And so we have to find our way out. And eventually what happens is if we realize, oh, this place of where the doorway of knowledge exists, somewhere in the center of that abyss where we open out into the universe, we realize that we have the capacity to learn and grow immensely, immeasurably, by actually falling into that abyss, so we could actually seek it, so we could actually go into that abyss willingly. And we start to learn how to get out of it. Ah, here I am again. Oh, but I know how to get out. So I'm going to go in there and I'm going to seek some knowledge. So that would be, again, like your classic vision quest kind of experience.
Would you say she shepherds you?
I would say, so the question is, would you say she shepherds you? I would say, if you were aware that you could call her, she might shepherd you. If she was in the mood. But she would be the part of ourselves that would shepherd ourselves through, definitely. And she would be there for us if we knew to call, right? Mm-hmm. Like, because, we're also going to pretend like when you fall in, you had set your cell phone down on the ground, up at the top. And then you fell. So you don't even have speed dial. So you got to figure out another way to call, right? And that's a big part of what the priestess is opening to the intuition, opening those channels and calling out. Okay. Let's talk about the two pillars for a second. The two pillars on either side of her are related to the number 11 because they're two pillars, and you put 11 as two pillars, right? Mm-hmm. So also that secret sphere of dot, the sphere of knowledge, is sphere number 11. So it's a secret sphere number 11. So the priestess has something to do with going through a doorway a secret doorway, the doorway of 11, the secret doorway of 11. And that's where everything is revealed. Okay, so 11 is also the number, the key number of karma, the tarot card karma in Tarot of the Spirit. So that's number 11. So 11, so we take the 11, and 1 plus 1 is 2, and 2 is the 1, the 1 pillar plus 1 pillar makes 2, and that's the priestess. So the priestess is related to karma, your karma, our karma, through numerologically. And she is also related to the tarot card Resurrection, which is number 20, because 20, that's a number 2, 2 plus 0. 2 plus 0 equals 2, and that's the number of the priestess. So it's interesting that the priestess, karma, and resurrection are related because they tell a story. And when we look at the tarot card for resurrection, we actually see that the opposites, the lovers, which represent a pair of opposites, conjoin, become one, and as one being, rend the veil. What you see is the movement through the veil, as the veil is open and then moving through into the next dimension. That's the tarot card number 20. And so the priestess is related. Once we find our true karma, the path of our true karma and our true path, we eventually rend the veil, open the veil onto the next dimension or other dimensions. That's the power of our calling. By following our calling, we move into this place where we move through to a higher way of knowing. So this is our individual karma, but it can also be a group karma. For example, when the founding fathers of our country, which I talked about in a YouTube lecture I did called Isis, Mary, and Liberty, when the Isis, Mary, and Liberty, so when those founding fathers decided to choose that concept of liberty and that goddess liberty to symbolize the quest that they were on, that became group karma. For everything that would come up, they created it through symbolizing it. So we'll talk about this at another time. But I do want to say that liberty and the priestess are the same path on the tree of life. Okay, so but you can look at that in other places because I can't talk about that right now. But I will say that the esoteric title of the priestess is Priestess of the Silver Star, Star of the Sun, Silver Star, or Star of the Sea. There are several titles, and many of these titles are the same titles that Mary has as well, who occupies that same path. Star of the Sea, that's a reference to our place of origin in the sea of the cosmos. The priestess holds the memory of the beginning as well as the process of cosmic evolution. And because of her understanding, she is vastly compassionate, it is said, like the Virgin Mary. She is known also, the Virgin Mary, as the Star of the Sea. The priestess represents the third mode of empowerment, which is called memory. Okay, so the first mode of empowerment, there are three major modes of empowerment in the tarot. The first one is connected with the Fool, and that's called attached detachment. And that's where you're moving towards something but willing to let go of the outcome at all times. So it's an attached detachment. Attached because you're on a path, but letting go at the same time. The mode of empowerment connected with the magus is called focused action. That's what starts to move the energy. And then the power connected with the priestess, the mode of empowerment connected with the priestess, is memory. And the memory is about remembering who we really are, and remembering all that is, all that has been, and all that ever shall be. So again, she's called the uniting intelligence. She unites both sides of the tree. She also unites above and below, and past and future. Past, present, and future. Everything becomes united in her. Now I want to look at the Kabbalah and Tarot of the Spirit, and mention a few more things about the priestess out of this book, Kabbalah and Tarot of the Spirit. The teachings of the priestess. So the priestess, so this is back to your question about the veil. What is the veil? So the priestess is the revealer and concealer of all purpose in the cosmos. So she can reveal at will and also conceal. She's the mediating channel between the worlds of spirit and matter, and cause and effect. She's asking you and us about our own cause. What is it that we want to adhere to or align with, and then move on the path of our cause? And she begins to allow us to open to our psychic abilities to see and hear and feel beyond our ordinary consciousness into a larger reality, to extend into a much larger reality. And as we do this, we acquire a sense of faith. And then, like the camel, we know without a doubt, we don't even have to think about it. Like the camel, we know when to lie down and seal off our eyes and nose and mouth until the storm passes. Okay, that's an art, but that's something that we begin to learn as we tap into the priestess energy, the priestess who unites the polarized energies of the pillars on either side of herself. She learns how to explore the dark, mysterious cavern of the abyss and the 11th sphere, and return with powerful insights that cast consciousness anew. So this is really our ability as a high priestess, right? So I'm talking about the priestess as if she's outside of ourselves, but she also is ourselves, right? Everyone understands that, okay? So what happens here is the soul grows through these situations, and we learn that our soul grows more in situations of adversity than in conditions of smooth sailing. We don't learn that much when everything is smooth and easy. The soul of the universe, and we are the soul of the universe, the soul of the universe grows when we are challenged. We learn through our own dark nights of the soul, and we learn through willfully entering the dark night of the soul. Like, what am I supposed to learn from this? What's supposed to happen here? And instead of just being stuck in it, we can move through it by asking, what is this? What's going on? What is this about? The word psyche means soul. Psyche. You know, psychology is the study of the soul. And what happens with the priestess energy is we learn how to become psychic. And that means understanding the soul of ourselves and the soul of the cosmos. We are inside a much bigger picture. She unveils for us the cosmological story. She is in possession of the scroll of knowledge, and she becomes the overseer and monitor of this collective and individual. It's both collective and individual, this cosmological story. She looks at the Akashic Records and points to it, as I mentioned before, sees your name, and here's what she says to you. The story of the cosmos has been in motion for a long time. All that has led to this moment of your becoming. This becoming has taken place over countless billions of years, and now here you are with exacting form and exacting power. This is not an accident, and you are not an accident. Now, here you are with freedom of mind. That's the key on the priestess. Liberty, freedom. Here you are with freedom of mind. Through you, the force and power of the cosmos comes to inhabit specific form, even as you yourself are the power of cosmos bound in form. Whatever you think, do, and say will impact the future of the cosmos forever. Forever. Because once it's set in motion, it can never be taken back. That's karma. That's the law of karma. Whatever you do travels endlessly forever. So, what story will you tell? What testament will you live and give as your purpose in the present and your legacy for the future? This is the High Priestess. What do you stand for? Who are you? And are you going to rise up into that? The High Priestess is the brilliant illumination of the soul of the cosmos, reflecting everywhere its own divine nature. She who is called the Shekinah above, even as Earth's sister is called the Shekinah below. And the Shekinah is, we are all the Shekinah. The Shekinah is illuminated cosmic energy walking. We have always been that, and we will always be that, but our task is to become aware of it, because we are sleepwalking most of the time. The High Priestess unites above and below. As above, so below. The chain of causality links divine potential into divine form. All of it is divine. Seize the moment, she's talking to you, seize the moment of your present incarnation. Seize your moment. Carpe diem. I will also add the meditation colors of the priestess if you want to go deeper into this energy in your meditations are blue, silver, cold pale blue, and silver rayed with sky blue. So those colors, they say, set off priestess energies within our own selves. And one more small reading from Kabbalah and Tarot of the Spirit, which is the mystery of the priestess. Bearing light from the source, I enter the flow of the cosmological story. Bearing sensibilities from the source, I read the cosmological story. I base my consciousness on the sure foundation of the memory of that which has been and is, together with new possibilities for becoming. I live the essence of my moment in the living world of manifestation. And now we're going to bring this to an end. And so I'd like you to just close your eyes for a moment and imagine that blue and silver in your mind. Just imagine that blue and silver in your mind. And just listen. May I honor the experience of all beings in the cosmos. May I be tolerant, open, and compassionate. May I be a burden bearer and not a burden. May I remember and learn from all that has gone before. May I look upon myself with compassion. May I forgive the child within me. May I forgive all beings in the cosmos. May I cherish all beings in the cosmos. May I cherish the cosmos. May I desire to serve. May I offer myself in service. May I give freely. May the gift I give become my own sustenance. May I open to receive the key of the High Priestess.